Money FM 89.3. Best of breakfast. Morning Shot.
Welcome to Morning Shots with me, Audrey Seek. And we're now heading into the final quarter of the year, which also means appraisal season is just around the corner. And for some, it's a chance to showcase the year's hard work and talk about growth. But for others, well, it can feel like a pretty awkward and nerve-wracking sit down across the boss, right? So how can employees make the most of these conversations and maybe take the stress out of the process? How can we instead make appraisals work for us? To help us break this down, we're joined by Shalynn Ler, Managing Director at Ethos BeathChapman, joining us here in the studio this morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Audrey.
It's great to have you on. So, let's start with the basics, Shalynn, on how crucial this period is for employees. Do appraisals play a big role in shaping someone's career?
For sure, because appraisal only happens once a year, right? In some companies, maybe twice a year. So it's important to be prepared for it. I break it down into two parts, right? From an employee's perspective, it's your chance to really showcase your achievements over the year. It's your chance to also voice out, the things that you want to achieve over the next 1 year. And from an employer's perspective, it's their opportunity to really also assess how committed and how engaged this employee is. So it's important for you to go into an appraisal fully prepared, having reviewed some of your key achievements, key milestones that you've achieved over the year.
Yeah. So I want to lean into the employee side of things first, So when you're sitting across a table from a boss, what tends to make an employee's contributions stand out in these discussions? Is it all about the numbers? Is it the soft skills? Or is it the way you tell your story? What if you're not good at tooting your own horn, How can you maximize this time?
That's a great point. It's a mix of all. Generally, we would say try and focus on the measurables, right? So DJs, for example, for you guys, it's not just about since I've joined, people actually like me. I think we've got more followers. If you can actually go to your boss and say, hey, since I've done the morning show, we've got how much more viewership? We've got how many more followers on your socials? I think those are very important sort of evidence that you can showcase achievements and its actual sort of facts to present on the table. But more than just that, is exactly like you said, it's not just about the facts, it's about how you put it across to your boss as well. The storytelling is really important. How do you align your values to the company's values? If, say, this year your company has come up at the start of the year to say, okay, this year we want to focus on increasing our followers, right? Then use that as your opportunity to really show or find the evidence through that. If not in actual followers, can we actually prove it in other ways?
Okay.
So a more compelling story for your bosses.
Yeah, all very good points. And I'm just wondering, based on the people that you've spoken to, and you've been in this for a long time, what are the main pain points or weaknesses when it comes to the typical employee in Singapore trying to showcase their contributions to their companies?
I feel like one of the things that would be sort of a showstopper is that a lot of people, when they come up to appraisal period, they only start to prepare maybe a week or two before that.
Yeah, is that not typical?
But it's actually quite important to prepare way ahead of that, because when you have reached the appraisal period, you generally want to bring up things like, okay, I've been in this company for 2 or 3 years. Can we talk about internal mobility, or can we talk about a promotion or an increment, which is always in our minds, right? But the moment you reach that appraisal period, I kind of describe it like a proposal. When someone goes into a marriage proposal, you sort of want to have an 80-90% certainty that, okay, if I bring up promotion, if I bring out this proposal, it will be accepted, right? And that's something that doesn't just happen over that 1 to 2 period before your appraisal. It should already be worked on before that.
Okay.
Something that you actually discuss with your bosses along the way. And those goal setting actually happens at the start of the year, right?
All right.
So monitor them along the way. I would generally say don't have too many things on the list, right? So break it down into maybe like 5 main points and track yourself. For example, if I'm tracking numbers, like you said, okay, I'm 80% towards target. So we have 3 months to go or 4 months to go in the year. How confident are you to get that to 100%? If I do, how likely is it that you're going to get that promotion or increment that you're asking for?
Interesting. Okay. So I want to talk about these market realities. So when someone comes to the boss with the idea of getting a bonus or an increment increment or even a promotion, what would you say are reasonable expectations employees should have?
I would say manage your own expectations as well, because it's a bucket list of things that we want to achieve, right? Of course, everyone wants to get their promotion, everyone wants to get their increment every year, but the reality of it is it's affected by so many other things going on in the market too.
Yeah.
So for example, most companies would have bell curve of sorts, where you can't just promote everyone. There is like X percentage of people that they can look at for promotion for a particular year.
Yeah.
So even if you are doing really well, if there is someone that's doing way better than you, you still fall behind on that bell curve, right? So manage the expectations, but I would say always have certain goals that you want to set for yourself. Even if you don't get it this year, what about next? And I think the reality of it, especially in the market that we are, is also if companies are not doing well, if the market isn't doing well, then it does affect that overall pool that gets contributed into a bonus or increment. So that might be impacted too.
Yeah. So these are very sensitive conversations to have, especially with your boss. And then there's the tricky part, right? How can someone raise sensitive issues like workload or compensation without putting their manager on the defensive or hurt this working relationship?
Yeah. I think always focus on the facts. It is important to remove any too emotional sort of conversations that you want to have, right? So focus on the facts, focus on the measurables. Any sort of unhappiness that you have should always be presented in a professional way.
Yep.
Anything that you don't have an answer to, because once you get into the, I've done this person is better than me, once you go into that comparison, it no longer is about yourself and your performance, and you should always try to focus the attention back to the facts, what's on the table, what I've achieved, the milestones and all, and that will be a lot more of like better evidence to help you in your appraisals.
Yeah. There's also the aspect of, balancing the past versus the future, right? So how should employees kind of strike this balance between talking about what they've done in the past, past achievements, and signaling their future goals? Like, is appraisals the right time to bring up the bigger moves? Like maybe you want to pivot in your career or reskilling or even explore an internal transfer?
Yeah, I think for sure. But we have to be reasonable with that, right? Most companies would have 18 months at least to 2 year sort of period before you bring up internal move. But if you are looking to, say, relocate or move into another department, or you want to just have a different exposure within the firm at the 2 year mark, then this should be brought up about at least 6 months before that.
Okay.
So you would probably be talking to your bosses, not just about your current job scope, but what is it that you want to achieve next? Where do you want to move on to next? And actually build on to the goal setting with that new role in mind as well, and start to have that conversations from there.
Okay, so actually, I think that's a great point, that the way you approach an appraisal isn't quite one size fits all. It does change when it comes to the different career stages. So let's hone in on the mid-career strategy. For those in mid-career, how can we use appraisals more strategically to chart the next stage of our growth?
I think have a think about the path that you want to take, because if, for example, people management is quite a common sort of skill set that you take mid-career, right?
Yeah.
If you decide that, hey, I want to try this out, then the goal setting for the next 6 to 12 months during appraisal period is no longer just about your own achievements, but how do you then start to coach the people around you? And that will be quite a key portion that you would want your boss to put into your appraisal, even if you are not officially managing these people already, because that's also your chance to really showcase, that, hey, I have not done this before, but I have actually helped this person, that person to achieve this and that. And that will actually increase your possibility of getting that promotion into a people manager position in the next appraisal period.
Okay, and we actually do have some young listeners, and of course we know that a lot of fresh grads just entered the market with, graduation season as well. So what about these fresh grads who are heading into their very first appraisal maybe? What should they expect, and how can they present themselves confidently?
With fresh grads, it's a really important one. I actually still remember my first ever appraisal, right? I think we all do.
I hope it went well.
Yes, it did. Okay. Thank goodness. First appraisals are always very important because it's less so about showcasing, because you might only be with the firm for a couple of months. So it's less about what you've achieved during this 3 to 6 months, for example, but realistically what you've learned through this period of time and where you see yourself in the next 1 to 2 years. If if you are able to tell the story of how engaged you are, how committed you are in wanting this for your career in the long term, it helps your story, right? And I think that's probably the difference between someone that's quite fresh in the industry versus someone that has more to showcase in terms of achievement. So you really want to focus on what you've learned, what's the company's values, what is the team sort of goal over the next 6 months to 12 months, and really try to align your actions and goal setting from there.
And I do think that it also sets the tone, because if your first appraisal goes really well, you tend to not fear it as much moving forward. But if the first one gets tanked, then, I feel like you'll get nervous even more as years go on.
And I feel like when you are quite fresh in the industry, your attitude matters a lot more as well. If your bosses can see that, hey, this person doesn't have much experience, but great attitude, always here on time, always present, always willing to learn, and is open to feedback. I think those are the qualities that would really help push your career forward.
Okay. And now, let's end with the whole pool of people. What would you say to those who are simply just feeling nervous about the whole process? It's not a pleasant thing usually. So what advice would you give to people who are just feeling anxious as they head into appraisal season?
My advice is to look at appraisal season not too different from actually updating your resume. Because when you actually update your resume, you have to think about some of the achievements that you want to showcase in the resume itself, right? Or a CV. So appraisal period is the same. I would say use it as the opportunity to really think about over the last 12 months, what are some of the key things that I've done, but not just milestones that you've done. How is it different from that colleague that's sitting beside you, right? What have you done a bit differently from the rest? For some people, it can be as simple as my communication skills is much better, than the one beside me. Stakeholder management skills is much better. I think those are also things that it's a bit more intangible, but you still want to find a way to bring those things up. So if you are feeling a bit nervous, think of it as writing a CV up. You are going to be thinking about the same things anyway. If the appraisal doesn't go well, at least you have a good CV that's already written up for your next job.
Yeah. Okay. Well, some great tips there on approaching appraisals with more confidence, whether it's about reflecting on the past year or setting future goals. Hopefully this makes appraisal season feel a little less daunting and a lot more constructive. Thank you so much, Shalynn, for joining us this morning.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. That was Shalynn Ler, Managing Director at Ethos BeathChapman. Stay with us on Money FM 89.3.
To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.